Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video today. If this is your first time here, please consider to stick around, like and comment, and maybe even subscribe. For all of the rest of you who have been on this journey with me, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys being on this journey and helping me out on the road to 100. As of the publishing of this video, I have 35 subs. So to me, that is amazing. And I thank you all for the bottom of this dark little heart of mine because I appreciate it. I really do. I love doing this and I want it to be more than just a hobby. This is something I want to continue doing. So thank you for allowing me to do this. So before I go on, I'm going to give two quick shout outs. First, to my friend Ken, who made this awesome shirt. And there's definitely a story behind this shirt, but if you like this shirt or other shirts that are kind of similar to this, I will drop this down into the description. The link will be there. And then shout out to my girl Melissa Blue Delish for making these beautiful earrings. And I purchased both of these things. I have purchased both of these things from my buddies because I support small businesses. So I will put the link in the description for both of these items where you can also purchase something awesome for yourself. Now, I don't get anything off of this. I just am helping my peeps out. Word. I'm a complete nerd. I'm really sorry. That was probably embarrassing to somebody else besides me. Anywho, all right, today we are going to go get into the topic of coffee and cards. Let's discuss the Charles Lindbergh kidnapping. So, this might be a little odd to talk about, but I've recently learned so much about this case and it shocked me. So, completely shooketh here, and I'm going to do a timeout before I really get into the story. Mandela effect here, peeps, okay? So, in my reality, in my timeline, I was taught in school that yes, Charles Lindbergh had a child and the poor child was kidnapped, but the whereabouts of the kid was never known. I believe that even people have come forward claiming to be the Lindbergh baby. It was even on The Simpsons, where Grandpa Simpson pretended to be the Lindbergh baby. Odd. But, is this part of your timeline? Seriously, I know this sounds completely random and weird, but if you never heard of Charles Lindbergh's baby not only being recovered dead, but also having this huge trial and a man was executed, leave a comment down below because, oof, yeah, yeah, blowing my mind here. Seriously, blowing my mind. Anywho, time in. So we're gonna talk about the life of Charles Lindbergh and give you a little guys. We're going to talk about the life of Charles Lindbergh and give everyone a little bit of background. I have some awesome people from all over the world who watch this. And when I mean all over the world, I mean Canada and Ireland. Hello, everybody. I love my Irish friends. I love my Canadian friends. Hello. But they may not particularly know much about Charles Lindbergh. So Charles Lindbergh was born in February 1902 and passed away in August of 1974. Lived a long life. He was very well known for making the first transatlantic solo flight from New York City to Paris, France, nonstop. Now, other people have attempted this feat before, but he was the first person who did it solo, and he's the first person to do it nonstop. So, this was a huge deal. And this turned Charles Lindbergh into an instant celebrity. Even now, his plane that he made this famous flight from the Spirit of St. Louis is now at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. I'd like to see it someday. Charles Lindbergh became an instant celebrity. Huge. Like, just to give you an example, try to think of the height of the Kardashian fame, and yes, I feel dirty even using this as an example, but think of the height of the Kardashian fame and think that one day they were just normal people and the next day they had that height of their fame. That's what it was like for Charles Lindbergh. He was just a normal guy one day, and the very next day he was larger than life. Everybody wanted to talk with him. Every newspaper wanted to interview him. Every woman wanted to date him. But Charles Lindbergh was happily married to his wife, Anne. And I'll tell you why happily married here in a moment. But this was astronomical. And Charles Lindbergh did a lot for aviation technology. There's a lot of books and different types of information out there. So if that interests you, definitely go down that path because it is interesting. And I can leave you some links to some books that you might like to try out. So Charles Lindbergh was an instant star and couldn't get away from the press, which sort of wasn't a big deal, but at the same time it was. He didn't really seem to care that his private life was all over the place, at least the private life that he allowed us to see. The story really gets funky when his child, his first child with Anne, named Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr., was kidnapped. Now, this happened in, I didn't have the right date, in the 30s, 1932 is when this happened. So Charles Lindbergh Jr. was taken from his family home out of a second-story window with a full house at 7:30, where it was still daylight. It was odd, to say the least, but it turns out that that wasn't the weirdest thing. You see, Charles Lindbergh and his family normally spent Monday through Friday at Anne's mother's home because it was closer to New York City, which is where Charles Lindbergh worked. For whatever reason, this week, he decided at the very last moment that no, they wouldn't be going to Anne's mother's house. They were going to stay there for a few extra days in their new house that they were building. And I want to say it was in Oregon, but I could be wrong. So they were building this new house and they decided to stay there for a few more days, but no one was aware of this outside of the Lindbergh family and the full household staff. Now, Charles Lindbergh and his wife had a massive staff living with them, including a maid, a butler, nursemaids, a cook, and other people. So this was a very full house. The baby was kidnapped. Things got weird, to say the least. Charles Lindbergh didn't allow the police to interview anyone. That included his wife, himself, or his staff. That's a little odd, but it gets even weirder when Charles Lindbergh flat out refused the police and the FBI's assistance in looking at a 10-mile radius that surrounded Charles Lindbergh's house. He said, "No thanks." What? He refused help. The other thing that was very strange was about the ransom note. Now, before they had reported the child missing, both the nursemaid and Anne, mother of baby Charles, searched the whole house as well as the other staff. But those two individually searched the bedroom in which Charles Jr. slept and found nothing out of the ordinary. Charles Lindbergh went in there and found, weirdly enough, on the windowsill, a ransom note. Now, there wasn't just one ransom note. In this whole process, there was anywhere between 13 and 15 ransom notes, depending on whose story you've read. But the ones that are existing and still around today are in a museum. So at least 12 for sure exist, right? Weird. So you have Charles Lindbergh, who is not allowing the police or FBI do anything. You have his wife and his staff not being able to be questioned by authorities. You have Charles completely refusing to work with authorities. You also have a ransom note that popped up out of nowhere. Let's rewind 24 hours earlier. Charles Lindbergh decided to play a prank on his family. A really sick prank, where he hid his son, Charles Jr., for over 3 hours and told his wife and the staff that the baby had been kidnapped. And he was delighted in their terror as they freaked and ran around the house trying to figure out if he had really been kidnapped. In fact, when Charles first did say that the baby was gone, the second time when he was actually gone, members of his staff got angry at him and told him to produce the baby because this wasn't a joke. It wasn't a joke. The child was gone. Fast forward, and time goes by. Nobody knows what has happened to little Charles Lindbergh. It got so strange because Charles Lindbergh was a massive star, a massive celebrity, which means he had many different avenues in his pocket, legal and illegal. Charles Lindbergh called this a very, very professional job, which oddly enough, mobsters came to the defense and said that this is one of the sloppiest kidnapping jobs that they had ever seen. And if it had been someone with the mob, well, there would be no question. Very, very odd. This whole situation made J. Edgar Hoover himself so uncomfortable, and he was so sure that Charles Lindbergh Sr. had something to do with his son's kidnapping that he opened up a file, and people believed that he tapped him for the rest of his life. Very possible. A man named John, who had nothing to do with the case, the kidnapping, we think, or anything else, self-proclaimed him a mediator for the family between himself and the kidnappers. This was so important to this strange man named John that he ponied up $1,000 of his own money, which, keep in mind, that's a lot of money now. It was even a lot more money then, to make sure that the ransom was paid and little Charles could come home to his mother. John said that was his only goal. What happened in this whole thing was just more confusion, more ransom notes, things taken out in the paper, but pretty much nothing happened. Until a day in 1932, when a man named Richard Hampton, was 34 years old, got gas. And what is illegal about getting gas, you ask? Nothing. Except this man, Richard, paid for his gas with a marked note that had the serial number of one of the banknotes that came from the ransom money that Charles Lindbergh paid. So this one bit of evidence got Richard arrested. And this became known as the crime of the century. And many of you have heard that term from O.J. Simpson's trial, but this is where the term originated. This really was the crime of the century. All eyes were on this case. It went from a kidnapping to a murder case when young Charles's body was discovered less than a mile away from the Lindbergh home. It was concluded that little Charles had perished that night. Charles Lindbergh hastily decided to cremate his child and deny any further investigation that would have led more clues. Even though he seemed to be very careful in other instances, he didn't treat his own child's body as evidence. And that could be extremely difficult. I agree with that. But to never know, to have answers that could be there and have those answers destroyed because maybe it was something he couldn't handle is questionable at best. So poor Richard was executed for the kidnapping and murder of little baby Charles Lindbergh. He went to his death proclaiming that he was he was an innocent man. Nobody saved him, and he died. So what I am looking for today, and I'm sorry that was a long introduction because it was such an interesting case. And I've never heard anything like this. And I didn't realize that A, the baby was found, but B, that this baby had a whole murder trial and his father was one of the number one suspects. So the question is simple to the cards. Did Charles Lindbergh have anything to do with the kidnapping and murder of his son, Charles Lindbergh Jr.? Rider Waite, deck. And thank you for all of you who got this far. It was such an interesting story. So, for those of you who didn't know, Charles Lindbergh actually was not a golden boy at all. He had 4 or 5 different families besides the wife that he married, and he was known to be a Nazi sympathizer. So that's Sonny, who's really upset right now. People questioned him and his intent for a very long time. I feel like this is an example of all of the children that he had. And he had many, many children with at least 4 different mistresses, if not more. I feel like Charles Lindbergh had 2 sides to him. He was prim and proper. He was an outstanding citizen that everybody wanted, and everything that he put forth was outstanding. But he was also a dark soul. And I also feel like he hid behind religion. I feel like he felt if he prayed that all of his sins would be forgiven. I don't know how that works. Maybe it's true. But man, he did some sinning. At least allegedly. Allegedly. The tower. Well, interesting that the kid was taken from a 2nd-story window, and it was theorized that most likely he was the theory was that little Charles Lindbergh Jr. was accidentally killed and then tossed out the window. There would be head trauma. So this could be a very literal card. However, the tower literally means destruction. So I think this is a destruction in more than one way. The kidnapping / murder of the child was a distracting factor for the family members. But I also think this is the thing that personally destroyed Charles Lindbergh. I feel like he knew what happened. If he himself had not been responsible for it, I feel like he knew what happened. Um, I feel like he was working very, very hard to keep up this facade. This is a full time job to keep up this public persona, but he wasn't doing a very good job of it because even though he was a good old boy, all American dude, he was cracking and he was on people's list. Not only as a Nazi sympathizer, but as someone who was not cooperating with police and was not cooperating with the FBI. And how odd, with a man with that much power and that much clout, decided to not take advantage of anything when his child had gone missing. It's very odd. I feel like this is three sisters who are celebrating, but I don't necessarily think this is a celebration in a traditional sense. I feel like this is a celebration of relief. Um, I feel like this is how he felt after Richard got executed. It was all truly over and everyone was going to be quiet. Um, the baby did die right away. This is a transition from one life to the next. And as you can see, one couple is holding a child. It looks like a second couple is holding child, but this is a transition from one life into the next life. So I do believe that the baby died right away, unfortunately. Anne was alone in her grief, and I feel like she knew a lot more than what she was saying, but she kept her head down, as the queen did in this particular photo. I feel like she did that because this was not a safe situation. It was, she was in danger if she didn't go along with what was the proper narrative. I feel like she was afraid something would happen to her too. I feel like she's holding a lot of secrets in her. I feel like Anne was a victim of circumstances. I feel like obviously this is a heartbreaking situation that happened, and I feel like this was not just the heartbreak of Anne and the public, but even to some extent Charles himself. But I feel like he didn't process it. It wasn't real to him. I feel like this was almost a game, or he almost like the child was a doll. I feel like he treated the baby as an object. Now, this is literally death. Now, death card does not always mean death, but in this case, since I'm asking about death, it does. So, I believe that actions that were actions that were set in motion by Charles definitely led to the death of his child. Do I think it was on purpose? I don't know. There is a possibility that he was playing another prank, but I feel like actions have consequences, and this consequence was paid for in death. This is Charles Lindbergh himself. This is when he kind of got high off of the fact that he was a big celebrity and he liked all the accolades. He liked being the center of attention. He liked being that person that people lifted up. And what a way to be in people's hearts and minds with a child that's missing. Of course, they're going to keep him in their hearts and their minds, especially when the kid is missing. They want The whole nation was praying for this child to come back safe. What a bunch of power would that give to one person? What a bunch of power handed to him on a plate that he kind of harnessed the power from. But I also want to point out that he had everything at his disposal. Everything was handed to him on a silver platter, both legal and illegal, handed to him on a silver platter. That child would have been found if Charles wanted his baby to be found. I'm sorry about the dogs barking in the background. Can't help it. There was a balance. I don't feel like Charles was the only person that was working on this. I feel like there was another man that worked on this with him, but I don't think it was John the mediator. I feel like John the mediator believed in some sense that he was doing the right thing, but I believe that there was somebody else who was running around and trying to pick up all the pieces and trying to make them all fit together, that was like an assistant to Charles. He was paid off very lovely. And I also see that this is an image of a happy life. This is actually one of the happiest cards in the pile. And while his son tragically died, he went on to have many children with many different people. So I almost feel like the kid was expendable. And I hate saying that because I still think he saw the kid as an object and not a child, like a doll or plaything. But I don't feel like he looked at this baby. I don't feel like he looked at this baby and saw his son. I feel like he looked at this baby and saw an object. The Wheel of Fortune. Oh dear, how karma is going to turn for you. He did die in 1974 after a painful battle of cancer. But I can't say anything directly has to do with the other. I'm just saying that he caused his own karma, and it will be rectified. If it wasn't in that life, it will be in the next one. This card bothers me because it's almost like this guy up in front has a sheepish grin, and he's watching people quit and walk away. I feel like that's how he made some people feel working on his son's kidnapping case. I feel like he confused them enough to make them quit and walk away. And he has this sheepish little smile on his face, like, yep, I did that, yo. He had plenty of money. He had plenty of money to pay off anybody. The thing is, I don't think he did. I don't think he paid off anybody, except the person that he had as his assistant. But I also feel like he had enough on the person who was assisting him that he simply would have killed him if things would have gotten out of hand or pointed fingers towards him. I feel like he was directly involved with what happened to his child. I feel like his wife knows, and I mean, obviously they're gone now, but I feel like she knew, and I feel like she really kept her head down because of fear. And I feel like Charles Lindbergh was a little sadistic. I feel like in death, she is at peace because she was reunited with her child, but he's not with them. I don't feel like he's with them. I feel like they're in separate places. I feel like he's a lone wolf. Actually, he's gonna pop back into this world. I feel like it's time for him to come back, and he's going to have quite a battle on his hands. I feel like he's going to come back and be um, somebody else that is quite famous. He's not back yet, but he will be quite soon. And I feel like he's got a lot to answer for. And his karma may not be to live out his childhood, because he may need to live what it was like, to know what it was like to be a victim like his son. Um, he covered up a lot of secrets in the backyard, so I don't think his son's kidnapping was the only thing that was covered up by him and hushed with money. Um, I feel like this is probably a good place to stop right now, because I feel like we're getting a story that is very sad, and it's also going a little bit long, and I apologize for that, but I feel like we're getting a story of a different side of Charles Lindbergh than he presented to the public, which is also, it's documented that he obviously wasn't the nicest dude on the planet, but being not a nice guy and flat out killing your child and faking a kidnapping are two very different things. So I feel like he was definitely capable, and he might have actually done it, allegedly, supposedly, for entertainment purposes only. I feel like he is responsible for the death of his son. If he's not responsible, then he's directly responsible for stopping any sort of investigation, any autopsy, or anything that could help further the information. At the very, very least, he was guilty of impeding on police proceedings and not allowing his wife or his household staff be interviewed by the police. And a man with that amount of power, with that amount of both legal and illegal things at his disposal, it's easy to conclude that something was wrong, that he was hiding something. Now, unfortunately, I feel like I'm a little biased on this, but what do you guys think? Up until yesterday, I didn't even think that this kid was alive. I thought he was missing. I didn't realize that he was dead. I thought he was, unfortunately passed away due to old age, but somebody probably had him. What do you guys think? Tell me down in the links or the descriptions, down in the comments. Tell me down in the comments what you guys think about this whole strange case. And don't forget to check out the website that I will be leaving for the earrings and for the shirts. And don't forget, until next time, every single day is a gift. Use your time wisely. I will see you guys later.